Welcome to the Self-Publishing School podcast. This is the podcast to listen to if you're an aspiring writer or an author who wants to be more successful. On this show, you'll learn how to write and launch a book successfully, all from the top authors and people just like you who are doing it at the highest level. I'm your host, Chandler Bolt, the founder of Self-Publishing School, the author of the book called Published, and the CEO of selfpublishing.com. For free training on how to publish a book that sells 10,000 copies, go to selfpublishing.com/free training. Hey, Chandler Bolt here, and joining me today is Cathryn Lavery. Cathryn is an entrepreneur and creator and the co-founder and CEO of Best Self Company. They've took this company from 0 to 8 figures in less than 2 years and sold over 1 million planners and journals. It's just an unbelievably fast-growing company built around planners and journals. So that's what I want to talk about today, is just how they've sold so many planners and journals, how she used it to grow the business, just kind of the mechanics behind that. There's a lot of good stuff here. Cathryn, excited to have you here.
Great to be here.
So first off, why planners and journals? And I obviously Best Self has evolved to be way more than that now, but why those things? And maybe even more specifically, how did you create the first one?
So, I mean, we all pretty much create the first product that we want to exist. So that was kind of me. So I tried like every single planner out there. I bought Kickstarter projects, all that. And it was always like, first of all, they would come dated. So you get them in January, or then you're walking around with a third of buy one in March. And then you're like, well, I just have all this wasted space. That was actually what I was like, why don't I just buy an undated one that I can start anytime? And pretty much I just tried a bunch, didn't really like any of them. And then I created one for myself because I have a design background. I'm like, oh, I can do this. And then I'm like, okay, let's print them. And it's really expensive to print one-off planners. Like you're talking, $30, $50, and it would be like crappy material, because you get like scale, economies of scale when you do a lot of them, and you can get really good quality. So then I kind of was like, okay, maybe I'll kickstart this. And so that's kind of where the idea for the product came from. I wanted it for myself. Kickstarter, I'd done a few of them before, and I was thinking, well, if I can get enough people to buy it, I'm basically like crowdsourcing this product to be cheaper for me. And then what happened is I've started other businesses before this one. I never expected to turn into anything. I was just like, I want this product to exist. And turns out a lot of other people did as well.
So I want to talk about the Kickstarter in just a second. You talked about your design background. What is that background, and how did that help in your eyes create a better product?
Yeah, so I used to be an architect. So when you do architecture, you learn like graphic design. And also as my thesis project, I designed a book, it was a school publication where you're like designing a book, you're selling sponsorship, you're actually creating it. And so essentially I learned all of these skills that I could later use for what became Best Self. I just didn't know it at the time. So it's one of those projects you're like, this was incredibly useful. I learned about the different binding for books, and how you make it lay flat, and how you offset print, and all of this stuff. So that's kind of, where I got that skill set, and I just applied it to this product.
I see. Now, you create this product, and I think if I'm remembering correctly, you launched it via a Kickstarter campaign.
Yeah, so I didn't have the money to, print these things. And I've done Kickstarters in a previous business, as far as you're just essentially pre-selling a product before it exists. And that's what I try to tell people. It's like, you're not giving up equity in your company. You're not really giving out anything. You're just saying, hey, here's a product. Do you want it? You just have to pay for it now, and I'll ship it to you when it's ready. So it's a great way to validate that people are going to give you money for your product before it exists. And then it's also a great way to both improve your product and get a tribe of people around it. So one of the things we did was we gave away the PDF of the planner for free. So you didn't have to buy it. It was like, hey, if you want to use it, try it out. And so what we did from that is a ton of people had that law of reciprocity of oh, they give this away for free, they must believe in it, and they would use it. And then some of them would be like, oh, I wish this was done this way. And we actually tweaked the product throughout the Kickstarter, so it wasn't actually the same at the end, but it was better. And then another thing was just giving away for free was a great way to collect leads of people that are interested in the product. And then sometimes people were like, I can't afford it right now, but they would use the free one. And then whenever they would like hit their goal with it, they're like, oh, I'll actually go and buy it now. So it was actually a really good tool for us to both make the product better, give it away for free and have that sort of abundance mindset. And then, use it as a tool for leads for the crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah, that's super smart. Any tips or things you learned from running a successful Kickstarter campaign, and how did you guys do so well with that first campaign?
So one thing is just growing an email list before you start. So a lot of people are like, oh, I'll just launch on Kickstarter and people will find me there, like build it and they will come. Well, they actually won't. You have to send people to Kickstarter to your project, and Kickstarter will send people. Like a lot of people shop on Kickstarter. I used to be one of those people. I call it like Secret Santa to yourself, because you will go on there, you buy stuff, you forget all about it, and then 2 years down the road something will arrive in the mail and you're just like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted. I just completely forgot about it. So that's Kickstarter is like that. And so what happens is if you collect an email list of people that are interested in your product and you send them to it, Kickstarter will be like, oh, this is an interesting product, and their algorithm will send more people to you. And one thing that I tell people is that the algorithm, it doesn't it likes the number of backers that you send, not the amount that they back. So for example, maybe you want to support me, but you don't actually want the thing that I'm selling. You should still back me at a $1 level, because if you get 1,000 people backing you at a $1 level, Kickstarter is like, you just got me 1,000 people that are now on my platform thanks to you, and they will start sending more people to you. So if one project sends 25 people and they spend 1,000 each, and another project sends 200 people and they spend $1 each, they'll still prefer the $200 or 200 person list, because that's more people that will often come back and support other campaigns. So focus on growing your email list, sending the people to your campaign, and then Kickstarter, once they see in the first 24 to 48 hours that your campaign's doing well, they will start sending more people to you. And another thing is make sure that your goal is relevant to what it is that you're selling. And what I mean by that is, so we're selling a journal, and our public goal was 15,000, because we're like, that's the minimum amount that we need to be able to sell 1,000 of these. So that's the minimum that the manufacturer gave us, right? And so that our goal is 15,000, makes total sense. And we funded in like 28 hours. So we got that in 28 hours. And then what happens then is nobody's like, oh, will I take a chance on this? They're like, oh, this is funded. So they already have confidence in you. I ran into this guy and he was like, oh, I launched Kickstarter and it didn't do very well. It like failed. And I was like, oh, like what was it? And he said, oh, it was a book. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, how much did you ask for? And he's like, oh, 100,000. And this guy didn't have an email list or like anyone to send to. It was just like, oh, it's a book, it's 100,000. And I'm like, those two things, unless you already have an audience, don't align. You can raise 100,000. And I actually coached someone who launched a kid's book, and her goal was 40,000. She hit 640,000. So you can do it, but you don't ask for it. So if we had asked for 322,000, which is what we got with the self journal, if we had asked for that, there's no way we would have got anywhere near that. So you have to like think of like what your product is, and then what seems like a good goal and can actually have you deliver it. You can want 200,000, but don't ask for it, right? And so if you have a 3D printer, if you're trying to make 3D printer, 100,000 makes total sense. If you're doing some technological thing, like align what your goal is to what the product is. You don't need 120,000 to launch a book project.
That's great and super, super helpful. I want to back up just a little bit for those who don't know, because I've seen this on your site, and this is common lingo that's tossed around. What's the difference between a journal and a planner?
So the self journal is a 3-month based goal structure. So you set a goal, you break it down, and then you achieve it in 3 months. And then a planner is more of a organizing your time, but it's not like, oh, if I come in, if I don't have a goal, like I already feel like I failed, sort of thing. And so we realized that not everyone is coming in having, read the same books or like wanting to do all of this high level stuff, but they do want to do some of it. And so what's the, 80% that they can do without feeling like so overwhelmed. And so that's how we define it. So the self journal is a 3-month based structure, and then the planner is a 6 months based structure light.
I see. Got it. And is that just your guys' definition? Is that the more common definition of journal versus planner?
That's just our definition.
Got it. Okay. And so let's shift gears a little bit to marketing. I mean, you've sold, I think you said right at or a little over 1 million of these journals and planners. How have you done it? I mean, what's been kind of the biggest drivers of sales for those?
So I think at the beginning, like one of the things was we were the first 3-month based guided journal, as in like, okay, here's how you set a goal and break it down and get there. So for us coming into the space, it was like very different than what was out there at the time. It was very much like annual planners and things like that. And so I think at the beginning, it was very much like, oh, this is different. And this is sort of teaching strategies that high achievers use that you can implement yourself. And so it was just a different user and different experience than those out there before. And then I think as time has gone on, you know, a lot of people have journals now, especially 3-month ones. And so we went from, you know, you need 4 of these a year. So that's automatically more than most journal or planners. So now we're getting people to buy in bulk, and also focusing on, okay, we wouldn't really have been successful had we only sold it once, because we need people to come back and buy. And so it's really like getting people on this 3-month structure of setting a goal, breaking it down and hitting it. So that's like creating content around that. That's like showing them what success look like. And I think a lot of companies, they focus on, okay, we have to sell these people once, and you know, you acquire that customer. And we, you know, we use like Facebook and things like that to acquire customers. But I think creating a retention or consumption marketing of, okay, how do we get people to actually use the products that they buy it again? And so one of the things that we did was we had started a Facebook group, and we kind of did it because it seemed like the cool thing to do when we first started. And then it turned into this huge asset of people that were in there like talking about their goals. Because like Chandler, you and we would probably like go for a drink and be like, what's the goal you're working on? But not everyone does that. So that's not like a normal thing people do. And so I think the Facebook community allowed them to connect on things that they were doing and share strategies that were working. And then I was like, okay, how do we create sort of a rebate system for that? And so we did this thing for a while called the graduate challenge, which is, you know, you don't have to post it publicly, but you can. So you have to share a picture of your filled in journal every day, either in our group or on your social media. And if you do it every day for 30 days, we'll give you like a $10 Amazon gift card. So all we're doing is, hey, remember that product you bought? Why don't you just use it and like take a picture? And you know, some people would like score off, you know, on the picture, so they didn't want private stuff to be shown. But in general, it was like, oh yeah, all I have to do is use this. And so what actually happened was we had all of this user generated content that was in our group, and like people were super engaged. They were, you know, making friends and getting accountability partners in this group. And so that was a big thing of how we were able to grow sales, is because we weren't just selling a product, we were like selling this community, and we're also teaching them how to use the product so that they have to rebuy. And how do they rebuy? Is they're successful with the product. So I think, you know, making the product look good and feel good and something that people want to use is a huge part. Then the next part is making sure that they know what success with the product looks like. So what do you want people to do after they get your product, like in the first 10 minutes? And then I think another big piece of successful products in general is like, what are you adding to someone's identity, right? So for us, like I designed the box, so on the side of it, you like wrote your goal in there, and so you can publicly have it on your wall or on your bookshelf or whatever as like a public declaration of your goal. And what that is actually like someone's identity is tied to, I'm a person that sits down, that plans their day, that achieves their goals, and that all ties together with the product.
That's super, super smart. So you've got the subscription, um, you've got the subscription piece that keeps people kind of coming back. You've got creating a product that people actually use, novel
Yeah.
concept. You got the kind of the graduate and rebate program, and a bunch of other things that I'm sure we'll get into. I'm curious on the graduate rebate program. What percentage of people actually do that? Like actually go through that and complete the 30 days
Not
and send out.
not a ton.
Yeah.
Like not a measurable. I mean, people will use it. Will they use it for all 30 days? No, but it's almost like they don't really care by the point where they get into a habit of using it.
Mm,
Um, so that's the thing. It's like it's not big enough for someone to. It's big enough to push someone to do it, but then by the time they do it, the actual prize isn't the $10 Amazon gift card. It's the planning your day and getting the things that you think done. So
yeah. And very, very, very smart. Because then not only are you, I love that concept where you're the overlap of how do you create something that drives adoption, but also drives referrals. And like you said, user generated content and then in the process, because you have that Facebook community kind of as the hub, you're building community around that
yeah,
and kind of, like you said, attaching the identity to actually
and
using
it's
the product.
and like people would share it all the time. And it's also I created the product in a way that people want to share it on their social. Like they want to, because again, it's part of this identity piece of like what is, you know, your book or your product or whatever. What is that? The person that's going to read that, what is it saying about them? And so the whole purpose of how we designed it was like, oh, this is an experience to open and it's something you want to share, but also you're not sharing it just because like I got this cool thing. You're also sharing it like, oh, by the way, guys, in case you didn't know, I'm a goal setter. So that was a big piece. And there was one other part oh yeah, so we spent like we had professional photographers spent thousands of dollars getting these like professional pictures taken of the journal and things like that. The user generated content way outperformed the professional pictures because when people are scrolling through Facebook, most people, normal people, are there to see their friends, to see what people are up to, whatever, who's had a baby, whatever else. And so when you see this user generated content coming up, it's like a crappy picture on your phone or like it's like not
Yeah.
well lit. And the
Yeah.
thing about that is it's like it gets people curious. I'm like they're like curious and then that's why it does much better on for ads.
I see. So you're actually using those pictures and user generated content for ads.
Yeah.
Got it. And you're seeing those convert better.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Got it. Now you talked about you kind of glossed over this, and I feel like there's probably some magic that's specific to you and specific to Best Self. You talked about creating a product that people actually want to share, and that's shareable in itself. How do you do that? What are some practical things that authors or people creating something like this that they can do, or how do you guys do it?
I mean, I think the first thing is, if you're completely new with this, is start documenting products that you like to use. So, you know, for example, with the journal, it's like going down to like what does the paper feel like? What find other things in the same arena that you like to use and like why do you like it? Like Apple products, I want to create the experience that Apple has with like their unboxing because it makes you feel differently than like Adele, right? And so there's a reason that there's like three parts to what I call like product experience. The first is like the visceral piece. So that's like Apple when you go on their website or you open something, it's like very clean. It feels good, everything about it. There's like nothing that's unthought of, like every single tiny little feature that they will make into a feature that other companies might just gloss over, right? So I focus on how something looks, feels, the texture. That's like the first piece. The next piece is like the behavioral piece. So that's the part where you get a product. What do you do in the first 10 minutes that you get that product? And so understanding like a user of, okay, what do they do? What do they want? What's success look like with the product? And making sure that they know what that looks like so that they don't buy something and they're like, oh God, one of the things with the journal, for example, is we got this all the time was, oh, it's too nice. I don't want to write in it. And I'm like, well, it doesn't work if you don't use it, sort of thing. And then, creating like almost a campaign behind a bunch of user generated content of people with like really messy writing, and just showing that to people as in like, hey, I know that you think this is just too nice to write in, but look at all these people that hit their goals and they write really ugly, and that's okay because nobody has to see it but you. And then the last piece is, so there's the visceral, the behavioral, and then the reflective. So like, what does your product say about them? So if you can attach it to like a story that they tell themselves, then you also can win that way because they want to share that. So it's like Chandler, when someone signs up for self-publishing school, they probably get something in the mail and then they'd be like, I'm an author now. And so you're tying that to their identity as being an author. And so that is the third piece of the puzzle, is like, how do you tie your product to something that makes them feel better?
And would you call the third piece, because you said the three,
the reflective. So it's what does it reflect them, like your product on them.
So that gets back to the identity piece that you mentioned earlier. Hey, Chandler Bolt here. I hope you're loving this episode so far. It's time to go from inspiration to implementation. All right, so if you've learned something, we want to help you implement what you've learned with your book. So what I want you to do right now is go to selfpublishing.com/schedule, book a publishing consultation with one of the experts on my team. We'll talk about your goals for your book, your dreams, your challenges, your next steps, and we'll start putting together a plan. All right, so go to selfpublishing.com/schedule, book a call with the team. Let's see how we can help with your book. It's time to implement. How do you do that? How do you build identity into the product, or build to where people attach their identity to the product, or that it is reflective of them and who they are?
How do you do that? So it depends on the product. I'm thinking for our products, it's probably pretty self-explanatory, but I think understanding who your customer is and what it is that they want is pretty important. But I know it's difficult for every single type of product. Yeah. But if you can do it, I'm not saying that if you can't do it with your product, you're going to lose. I'm saying if there's some way that you can do it, either with the product or the story behind the product, maybe it's how it was created that the person can know about and feel closer to. Maybe it's maybe the product doesn't do anything, but like they donate profits to an organization that you connect to. So there's a lot of different ways that you can connect the reflective piece without it being like tied. Like you could sell, like a plunger for the toilet. How do you connect that in a way that's reflective that someone would want? But maybe there's a way of like, we do this from our company, or this is how it started, or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And because you said the way you do it is self-explanatory, how would you explain that with how you build identity into best self products?
So we think of, okay, what success look like with this product, or what is a product that you would want someone that comes over to your house to see, or they're, you're not going to be ashamed of them seeing it, or you want, actually, if it's on the coffee table, it like starts a story. So for example, one of our products is the intimacy deck, which is for couples to help with their relationship, but it's more of like a fun way to do it. So this being on your coffee table might be like, oh, I'm the person that invests in my relationship, or I take it seriously and I'm intentional with it. So that's a way that you can think of, like, how does someone that sees your product on their coffee table describe it to their friend?
Got it. That makes sense. And I feel like even in the name of the company, it's identity, right? Best self. It's, I'm the type of person who invests in becoming my best self. And even just with the logo on any product, best self product that I own, I am signaling to the world that I'm the type of person that wants to become a best self.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to call it company best self and not self journal, because I was like, there's so much more that is possible here. And there's so much to your being your best self than just like hitting your goals. It's like, if you hit all your goals in business, but you have terrible relationships or none at all, then are you your best self? Probably not. So there's just that's kind of why I wanted the company to be called that, because it allowed for much more, but it also, the identity piece is in there.
Yeah, that's super smart. What are the biggest customer acquisition channels for the journals planner specifically? It sounds like Facebook ads. Obviously, in the early days, it was the Kickstarter campaign. Are there other major channels that drive a significant amount of sales?
I think Facebook, Instagram, are the big things. Pinterest does okay, but like Facebook and Instagram are, way ahead of everything. And then, Google search terms for specific things around like journaling or planning your day or things like that.
Do you guys do a lot of sales on Amazon? Is it mostly direct on your site?
We used to be about like 80-20 to our site. Now it's about 60-40 because we have put more time into and energy into Amazon. It used to be like, yeah, we'll ship some product there, but we're not going to focus on it. And then we realized actually, like a lot of people shop on Amazon, including me.
Yeah.
The customer's already there. Why not put some energy in there? So now we're about like 60-40, still majority on our site. But the thing about it is you don't own the customer through Amazon.
Right.
So if there's a way that, when you get our product, there's things within it that sends you to our site. So hopefully we can get them back there.
Got it. I see. Because how do you navigate that? I mean, I know people have very different stances. They're like, all right, Amazon takes a huge cut, so I'm going to charge more on Amazon, or I'm going to try to get, I want people to be on my side, obviously, because it's more profitable. I own the customer. Like, how do you guys kind of look at that on selling on your own site versus selling on Amazon?
So we used to charge a little more on Amazon than we did it on our site. Now we just have a flat same price both places. But if we do a sale, so example, like if we did like a Black Friday thing, we're not doing that on Amazon. We're only doing it on our site. And then, we have resources within the products that we link to, hoping that, if they go there, they'll join our email list or something like that. I think, owning the customer obviously much more preferred, but at the same time, there's just so much traffic going to Amazon. It just makes sense to not just be trying to get them all to come to our site.
Got it.
And
Yeah.
also they do take a big cut, but there's customers there, and they also deal with all of the shipping and things like that. So shipping your own product from your own warehouse is really expensive and annoying. And actually
Yeah.
we're actually moving to a new warehouse right now that will give us the same speed as Amazon, which is going to be a huge thing for us because people are so used to free 2-day shipping that when you can't do that, which is just extortionate for like small businesses, it's just really hard to compete with Amazon. So it just doesn't make sense. So now that we're kind of moving to somewhere like that, we'll be able to do more like that.
And is that, I'm guessing you're having to pay more for that, or you got to a scale where it makes sense, or what sparked the switch to the different warehouse that now has 2-day?
So it's like both a scale thing, not really being happy with our current, and a new sort of platform that has relationships with a bunch of warehouses. The reason why Amazon can do 2-day is because they have warehouses all over the place, and so this system also has or warehouse all over the place, but they take care of the between warehouse solutions, which most do not. So a lot of times you'll go to a logistics provider and they'll be like, "Oh, we have 12 warehouses," and you're like, great. At the start, you're like, oh, that sounds awesome. And then you realize, oh, I'm going to have to manage inventory in 12 places. That sounds like a nightmare. And it is. And so we have 2 warehouses right now. And now we're going to move to this bigger service, but they take care of the other warehouses. We just send it to one depot and they will figure it out from there.
Oh, wow. That's really, really nice. And what a lot of people maybe don't think of or realize is that as soon as Amazon bought Whole Foods, they suddenly have a lot more warehouses because they can store things in all of these Whole Foods locations. So, I mean, that's like getting warehouse. I
Yeah.
mean, not for a lot of products, but especially for grocery related items. What I've got a few kind of final questions. Which which planners and journals sell the best, and why do you think that is? I notice you guys have theme planners and journals, but also theme products. What are the top sellers and why?
So top sellers, the self journal, because that's where we started. Self journal and self planner. We only have 2 styles of planner journals, and then our discovery decks, which is like the intimacy journal that I mentioned, that is like going nuts, and that is because turns out a lot of people are in relationships, and that's a much easier like thing that they can. We just had Valentine's Day, it's like a lot of more people have relationships that they want to work on than goals or a structure for their goals or things like that. And so we started with a product called the Wordsmith, which is like journaling prompts, because what we realized is like people want to journal, but then they open a blank page and they're like, oh, what now? It's like scary. And actually that's kind of where, ideas for products came from. We came out with like a blank journal, which is called the Scribe. And we came out with these discovery decks, which the first one was journaling prompts because we're trying to sell the Scribe. And people were like, oh, I don't know what to journal about. So we created this product. And what happened there was we realized, oh, wait, there's a ton of other ideas that we can create from this that are not journal related. So it kind of spun off a whole other series of products. So now we actually have two types of customer. One customer that's never seen a journal or used one, and they came for the decks. And then there's the people that are like the diehard, journal planner people that we started with. And so that creates another sort of opportunity is how do you market to two different customers that are coming in from different things. And actually these type of products are also things that people share on social media a lot.
That's interesting. So you've got these two different avatars. Do they overlap that much, or is it truly like either they're buying one thing or the other?
There's a little overlap, but it's surprisingly we did a study last year and we realized how different they were. Like when we came out with the decks, we had a whole other customer base, which is exciting, but it's just like, oh wait, we have to come up with another sort of story for them, because if they're buying a product and the follow-up sequence is about a journal, they're like, what are you talking about? I bought a deck, a deck of prompt cards. So just different, things that come up in business.
Yeah, that's interesting. How do you navigate that moving forward? I mean, because from an outsider's perspective, I would look at that and I'd say, oh, super smart. You've got this journal or planner. And I mean, one of my questions I was going to ask is like, how do you profitably acquire customers on a low priced product at a high volume? And so my assumption is from an outsider's perspective would be, oh, really smart. Now we've got these bundles, we've got these kind of card decks, and like, so now we will increase the average order value, which means we can pay more to acquire a customer. The lifetime value goes up, like all the economics of the business. But if they're buying if those are two different avatars, two different products, how does that work?
The avatar that buys the decks are only coming in to buy the decks. The people that started with the journal, they will buy all the other things too.
Oh, interesting.
So it's more of like the new customers that come in for the decks. It's like bringing them into the ecosystem of like, if you came in to work on your relationship, why are we teaching you about goal setting, And so that's kind of where it goes from. But the people that have been with the journal and the planner and like know about Best Self, we've sort of been teaching them, oh, okay, like we started Best Self as like a type A, hit your goals, achieve, work. And then personally, I realized, wait a minute, there's more to life than that, turns out. And we created another range of products to actually serve other parts of your life that wasn't just the goal setting. And so they've kind of been along for that journey. But yeah, the people that came in for one type of product, they're like, so now we have another like nurturing sequence that's just for those, newer people.
I see. That makes sense. And so it seems like as you roll out these card decks, that's a kind of that's growing the lifetime value on the journal side of the business, which is super smart. And then on the flip side, it's bringing in new customers, but those new customers aren't as often going back and buying the journals or the other products. So probably the lifetime value on that customer segment is lower, which I would imagine means that it's tougher to spend money to acquire those customers because the average order value and lifetime value. So I'm guessing it's either we've got to figure out how to solve the kind of the LTV piece over here, or this product is, purely a lifetime value builder for the customers that we're already focused on and acquiring. Is that kind of how you're thinking of it, or differently?
Yeah, so I think what we've realized is we need more products in categories that are selling really well. Because if we only have one relationship product, which we did for a while, we have a couple more, then if you only come in for one thing, then you only have one thing to buy. And so now we've realized there's actually a huge opportunity for building out this product line over here, so that people come in and they can get a bundle of things in the
Yeah.
area they want to focus on.
Yeah. Which is very smart and makes a lot of sense because the category specific things, it's kind of similar to a buddy of mine who used to live together. He runs a company called Dr. Squatch, so high quality
Okay.
men's soap. And so as
Mhm.
they've built out kind of the categories, it's like, okay, we just have soap, but now it's like, okay, we also need, shampoo and conditioner. And then like, how do we build together kind of more of a product suite in the category? And then jumping to the other side of the bathroom, we've got toothpaste. And so it's
Yeah.
like, all right, the toothpaste here, not related to this, bundle over here, I guess, somewhat in the sense that it's cleaning, but a category based approach to that. I'm curious because this actually kind of feeds into one of the things I wanted to ask as well. I noticed you guys, I would imagine this is why, but I noticed you guys have taken a very kind of benefit focused approach to the product. And so it's like the end result is what you market to. So whether it's an intimacy product, whether it's a goal setting product, whether it's I'm forgetting the other categories that you have. And how did you land on that? And what's the why behind that? Because I think it's just so smart. It would be so easy in your cases, talk about the card deck or talk about the journal, but it's like that's in the backdrop of what you're focusing on, which is the benefit focused kind of product.
Well, I think it's because people don't care about our product is really it. It's just like, and I know at some point, people aren't going to want a journal at some point because like people are want to hit their goals, right? And right now, or they want to build a better relationship, or they, and right now, whatever product we have is the vehicle for them to get there. And so you want to sell them on what's this thing that I'm going to get at the end of it. And in some cases, like the product should be evolving over time as life evolves. And so at some point, who knows what's going to happen with the journal? But I'm not, it's not you have to remove your ego from your product being so amazing. It's like you have to know, okay, what's the problem I'm solving for the person, and sell them on that, and make sure that the product actually solves that problem, or they're going to be mad. And actually, speaking of like the idea of, you can take a book. So I know you have a ton of authors in your audience of like, okay, what could be a book, or what could be another product that goes along with the book? So we just worked with Jay Papasan and The One Thing to come out with a deck for them around this concept within the book that actually, it's like coming up with your core values. But in the book, it's actually very difficult to do that in a way that's dynamic. When you're looking at words, like if you're seeing all the words on the page, it's really difficult. And so we worked with them to create a card deck for them. And so, you might start with a book and be like, actually, this part of the book or this methodology I'm teaching could fit into a whole other product. And
it's very smart.
Totally something that you should like understand, that you can have a book and you can have other tools that come from the book.
Yeah, that's super, super smart. And I would imagine that's some sort of licensing deal where or is that your guys' product? Is that their product? How does that work?
So we basically developed it for them, and we sell it on our side as like, and we give them a licensing thing, and then we just manufacture it for them.
That's cool. And do they also sell it on their side as well?
Yeah.
Got it. Cool. Nice. That's awesome. Well, Cathryn, this has been great. Couple final questions for you. Knowing what you know now, what would be your advice to the Cathryn of how many ever years ago, planner, journal, Kickstarter, all those things, and all the other maybe Cathryns out there that are thinking about creating some sort of planner or journal or kind of an e-commerce play with books? What would your advice be?
I think just start. So if I didn't know half the stuff I knew now when I started, I think a great place to start is creating something that you want in the world. Because then like what you're looking for, like what problem you're trying to solve, what you like to do, like what literally journals and planners that you like, and start there. Because if you can make yourself happy, there's a chance you're going to make a lot of other people like you happy. So I would start there, and don't feel like, oh, I have to know everything to get started. I basically knew how to make a InDesign PDF when we started, and then I've like learned things along the way. But you'd be surprised how much you can learn on the internet. and with books.
Or from this interview.
Yeah.
I'm sure people are learning a lot from this. Cathryn, this is amazing. Where can people go to find out more about you? Where can they go to obviously, find Best Self products, purchase the journal, the planner, and your other products?
Yeah, you can go to bestself.co. All of the products I mentioned there in this interview are there. And then you can find me at littlemike.com. That's just my personal blog where I talk about more of the like behind the scenes type things of why I think the way I do.
Awesome. Cathryn, this is amazing. Guys, check out the Best Self products. They are awesome. I love what you guys are building. I love what you're doing. So thank you for coming on.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of the Self-Publishing School podcast. I know there's so many places that you can be spending your time. There's other podcasts that you can be listening to, YouTube channels that you can be watching. So thank you so much. It means the world. Now, I want you to do 3 things right now if you found this episode helpful. All right, number 1, I don't know if you know this, but we've got a YouTube channel. It's a companion channel to this podcast. All the video versions of the episode are on the YouTube channel. So number 1, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Number 2, if you're listening to this podcast wherever, whether this is Spotify, Apple Podcasts, number 2, I want you to subscribe to this podcast right now so you don't miss a future episode. And then number 3, this is probably the most important, leave a review on the podcast. All right, reviews are super important and help this podcast get discovered by other people. So number 3, leave a review on the podcast. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next episode. If you're on the fence about scheduling a publishing consultation call with my team, maybe you're not quite ready for that, I've got some free training that I think will be really helpful for you. All right, all you have to do is go to register to sign up. Go to selfpublishing.com/free training. When you do, you're also going to get a free digital copy of my new book, Published. And on that training, you're going to learn the next steps, so how to implement with your book. So how to write, how to publish, how to launch successfully. So go to register right now at selfpublishing.com/free training. I'll see you there.